side, I see the born, of no return. Just ahead now, can't you see we're rushing for the end? I see the point of no return. Now see the point of no return. It's just ahead.
Well, good evening, everybody. It's Tuesday, August 12th, 2014. I don't know how it's looking where you are, but, you know, I look outside here, and the trees are already starting to change color. Now, I'm in Northern Virginia, just a little bit south of Washington, D.C., and that's a little early for the trees to start getting into their autumn colors. Now, I'm not sure I'm willing to buy into the human-caused global warming saga that, you know, Al Gore and his like have been trying to jam down our throats for such a long time. But I must admit, weather here where I am has been a little odd this year. And it does kind of look like we're starting into a really early autumn this year. Kind of makes you wonder what this winter might be like. I would suggest those of you who have a fireplace or a wood stove might want to put a little extra effort and stockpile a little bit of fuel, just in case. I don't know. You know, long ago there was this thing called the Maunder minimum, where apparently solar activity went into, you know, a minimal condition for a fairly extended period of time, and there was you know, period of about, you know, between, some say 100, some say 200 years there, where they had what was called a mini ice age, where temperatures dropped considerably. You know, just prior to this period, they were growing wine grapes in northern Britain. And, of course, during this cold period, they had to stop because they couldn't get the grapes to grow. Had to switch over to beer making. But, you know, one thing about climate on this little third rock from the sun that we live on is that, for the most part, it is driven by solar activity. And I just can't imagine that the change in weather patterns that astronomers can see on Mars and on Jupiter have much to do with yuppies driving SUVs. So, you know, as far as the human-caused scenario, you know, if you live in L.A., you know that there are local weather effects that are human-driven. If you live in Beijing, you certainly know that there are local weather events that are driven by human activity. But all right, let's see here. I'm being told that I do not have any audio going to rinse. All right, let's see here. I am told that I do not have any audio going to rinse, and yet I can see the bar moving like a banshee. So I'm not sure what that's all about. But yeah. Okay. I just sent a quick note to the Rent Studio asking if I do indeed have audio hitting the Rents broadcast. Looking here on my little bars, it seems I do, but okay, I'm not sure what that's all about. We'll just have to wait and see. But here's the deal on this climate change. I'm convinced that yes, we are going through a pattern of unusual weather, and okay, I'm willing to buy into that. Where I do draw the line, though, is when it comes to the idea that human activity is having a global impact on the climate. That one, I got to kind of scratch my head. I just have not seen any convincing evidence that that is the case. Well, I'll tell you, we do have quite a bit to try and get through here in the news. In the background there, I think I have Charlie McGrath hanging out, so I think he's got something he wants to contribute at some point here. But let me see if I can get through these first couple items before I bring Charlie in. A little bit in entertainment news. Seems we had, one of America's favorite pastimes is car racing, and it seems this feller who was racing NASCAR ran over somebody, and some say it's on purpose. Look, if this guy really purposely ran over one of his competitors in the course of a race, killed this guy dead in front of a lot of people, if there is evidence, you would think that regardless of his southern machismo, which is what the press is blaming this on, the press is saying, oh well, he's one of those gun-toting, Bible-carrying southerners, so he just got a bad attitude, and his southern machismo got in his way, and that's why he ran this guy over. For all I know, this driver, whose name I'm purposely not mentioning, because if this SOB really did run that guy over, I don't give him any press. I'm not going to say his name. Take that. You think running somebody over in the course of an automobile race, you're supposed to be a paid entertainer. Although, to be honest with you, sometimes I look at the American audience for entertainment, and I have to wonder if a lot of people aren't going to these automobile races hoping to see somebody run into the wall, hoping to see something like what they saw in this race. I have to wonder if we're getting back to Roman gladiator days, and this is what people would like to have in the form of entertainment. I hope not. But, as with so many things, you're going to have to consider the various opinions put out there and make up your own damn mind. Let me pull Charlie McGrath in here, and let's see what he's got to say. Charlie McGrath, are you with me there, my friend? Charlie? Okay.
Gary, you got me?
Now I got you. Why don't you, go ahead. What, so what's happening, man?
I'm shutting down. I'm shutting down. You called me on my cell phone, and then again on Skype. So I don't know what's going on. How are you?
I'm doing well. So what's happening in the land of Charlie McGrath?
Well, I was just listening to you talk about and I won't mention his name. I'll respect your hour here. And
I just the guy pisses me off. I mean, if he really did that on purpose, I don't want to give him any press. I mean,
how about the idiot? How about the idiot that got killed, right? And he's an idiot. He flips his car over. He gets mad. Like you said, Southern machismo.
Yeah, he's apparently wagging his finger at.
Yeah, I watched the video.
Apparently, there was a little bit of a bump and run thing. Somebody bumped somebody, and somebody got pissed off. So he's standing out there. Well,
He jumps out of his roll cage protected vehicle that he was perfectly fine in.
Yeah.
And instead of jumping over the rail, getting the hell out of the way of these, whatever they are, sprint cars that are going, I don't know how fast they go, Gary, 100 miles an hour, whatever, however fast they're going, fast enough to kill you dead if you're an idiot out there waving your finger because you're pissed off. Now, this guy, I don't know if TS did it on purpose or not, but I did watch the video in full. You can find it in full, seeing the actual strike. And it's hard to tell. It's hard to tell if he's swerving or if he, stepped on it or whatever. But come on, man. You are walking around in the middle of a freaking racetrack, waving your finger, looking to call someone out. You were begging to be killed. If not by him, by somebody. But
now see, everybody else managed to avoid it. The guy who was apparently run down and killed, I'll mention his name. His name is Kevin Ward. He's apparently a, up-and-coming driver.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. But I will grant you that getting out of that roll cage encased automobile and climbing out onto the tarmac just to wag your finger at the guy you assume bumped you. That does require large brass ones, I guess. But still, everybody else managed to avoid this guy. Now, how TS failed to see him standing there wagging his finger and just ran him over, I don't know. Anyway.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you. I mean, in watching the video, you do see 4 or 5 cars going 100 miles an hour manage to miss this kid.
What do you think of my other argument? What I'm afraid of is that a lot of people go to these races hoping to see that kind of thing. I mean, are we devolving to the point where we're back to gladiator days and we want to see the Christians fed to the lions?
Absolutely. I don't. You know what? I'm not into NASCAR, Gary, and you're a Southern gentleman, and I know it's bigger down there. Are you a big fan of racing?
No, I don't much care for football. Don't much care for NASCAR because it all to me seems like mock tribal warfare. But I suspect I may be in the minority on that. I don't know.
Well, I know some NASCAR fans, and they worship these drivers like they're first of all like they're real athletes, which they're not. Really, they're not. I'm sorry. I'm sorry if you think that I'm wrong, thinking driving 400 miles in one stretch. It does not take an athletic individual. Now, it might take some endurance, but give me a break. They're not athletes. They're entertainers, like Gary said.
I don't know. As far as their athletic prowess, I think they probably work out doing 12-ounce curls, but still, Now, what do you think of the other? What do you think of the other big item in entertainment news? I mean, the news media just cannot seem to get over the fact that Robin Williams killed himself. I mean, Robin Williams was an entertainer. Okay, I watched a few of his movies. Some of his movies I liked, some of his movies I didn't like. But he's a court jester, okay? His entire value to society was make me laugh, make me cry, scare me, give me an hour and a half of mindless entertainment, Mr. Williams, and, you're entitled to whatever, financial compensation you get. But now, why the news media would just be totally wrapped up in stories about this man's suicide, I don't know. I mean, Robin Williams, hey, sorry it didn't work out for you. Sorry you felt you had to commit suicide, but I don't know why the news media spent so much precious time. That's all they were talking about today.
That's all they were talking about last night. I mean, I usually tune in to some cable news programs because I like to see what the spin of establishment media is on real issues, right, on important issues. And the program at I believe it's 8 o'clock Eastern time with Wolf Blitzer on CNN. I happened to tune to that, and the entire hour was covering this death of Robin Williams. Now, I mean,
I would not have wished the man dead. I mean, I don't wish him any ill, but I don't understand how that can absorb so much of the precious time that the news media has to present to us.
Especially with the world on fire. I mean, the world is literally in everywhere you look. There's people dying, right, by the thousands, not by one comedian who had obviously severe mental problems and killed himself. I mean, there's thousands and thousands of people dying, not by their own choice around the world. I mean, granted, Gary, Robin Williams was a superstar. I mean, everybody knows who he is, multiple generations, and him hanging himself. Come on, man, that is teed up for media to grab onto and to talk about. But I agree with you.
You think maybe they might have considered that, you know, a piece that would get people's attention, kind of keep them distracted from the, you know, what you or I might consider real news?
I think it's shock and awe.
I mean, do you think the news media might actually play such a game on us?
Oh, absolutely. I absolutely believe they do. But I think they look at a story like this at the shock and awe value of it. You have an actor, comedian who was sick, but nobody knew he was sick. He had all these mental issues going on and super depression, and everybody knew that he was a drug addict and alcoholic, and he even admitted that. But you have him that is big time. I mean, he's big time Hollywood, and you have him taking his own life. I mean, that is made for these pimped out pimps in these alphabet news agencies. They might come on, Wolf Blitzer might come on and talk about, oh, the tragedy, the sadness. But you know what? They live for this kind of pop culture story. I know that sounds mean and grotesque, but come on, they live for it. They love the incident of this black kid that's unarmed getting shot by a white cop outside of St. Louis. They love it. They love it because it can dominate hours and hours and hours of airtime. And if it happens to cover up the tragedies that are going on around the world that are, in a lot of cases, U.S. Funded or U.S. caused tragedies, then all the better.
What do you think? Will they have more luck with this Michael Brown killing than they had with the Trayvon Martin thing? I mean, it appears that, you know, they at least got enough folks riled up in Missouri there that you know, there was some damage. I got a list here. You know, the looted and damaged businesses included a Zisser Tire and Auto Zone. It appears that people are looking for some 22s and some tires. I don't know. Something called a Quick Trip, which I guess in my area is like a 7-Eleven. You know, it's a little convenience store. Family Dollar, Walmart, Foot Locker, Ross Dress for Less, Walgreens, Shoe Carnival, Hibbett Sports, Taco Bell, a Sprint store, a Kmart, a DTLR. Frankly, I don't know what they sell. I'm not from that area.
Why don't they? I don't understand this. When there's this kind of Gary, help me out here, because you've went through a lot of protests in your day, going back to the Vietnam War, and I'm assuming in some of these.
Oh, I remember when Martin Luther King was assassinated, and the black people in D.C. burned up 14th Street, and for some unknown reason, they burnt up the black neighborhood. I never really could figure that out, even as a youngster. I mean, I was only about, 16 years old back then. But, they burnt up their own neighborhood. Now,
that's what I don't understand.
If they were really pissed, why didn't they go after, a target that they actually, felt was to blame?
Burn down the police station.
Yeah, burn down a police station, or go down to the mayor's office, burn the mayor's house. I mean, I don't understand why, because that here in D.C., there is a thriving, still is today, a thriving black middle class, black people who've put their nose to the grindstone. They've got small businesses. They serve in their own community. Now, granted, over the last 25 years or so, it has become somewhat more dilute, and now a lot of the Arab immigrants and Korean immigrants in particular have moved into the black communities and now have businesses in there. But still, these people live in that community. They support that community by establishing small businesses. And why you would want to burn down your neighborhood Quickie Mart so your neighbor can't get a loaf of bread and a gallon of milk when they need it, I don't understand the logic to that. I understand their frustration. I understand that they were more than just a little pissed off with their Gestapo-style police that apparently, if you believe the witnesses on the scene, apparently this kid, had his hands up and they shot him while he had his hands up in a in a surrender situation. Okay, I can understand them being a little, but how people equate burning down the local Quickie Mart with the actions of a Gestapo-style police, I just don't know. That just, right over my head.
Yeah, me too. And I'm going to make it clear, my point of view, my feeling on I don't think they're doing it because they're black. I don't think they're burning down. I think that what's unfortunate is that the system is what it is. And you have police departments that are it almost seems to me like they're targeting blacks, and that isn't true. I mean, let me rephrase that. Police are out of control in this country. Police are out of control in this country, and when you have the Trayvon Martin case, when you have this poor kid now, when you have the New Mexico homeless that is being murdered because he is standing there with a knife in his hand, and they're trying to evict him off of public land. The police are, Gary, I know you've seen violence by the police, right? Kent State. I know you've seen, beat down of crowds, but you have to, I mean, I hope you agree with me that what we've seen is an out of control, over steroided, Gestapo style police state that doesn't give a crap. It doesn't give a crap. This kid that got 18 years old, about to start college, hands up, unarmed, even if he wasn't hands up, even if he was having a fist fight with this cop, he's unarmed. He's unarmed. He should not be dead on this 12th day of August.
Well, I will agree with you. I will agree with you that the militarization of the police has some. We're not dealing with Andy of Mayberry here anymore. The soft-spoken, man of the law who wants to maintain peace and order. We're not seeing that nowadays. Now what we're seeing from our police is you will submit, as Cartman said. It's a Cartman reference. You may not get it, but you will submit to my authority.
Respect my authority.
Yeah, we'll respect my authority. And they get so full of themselves they forget who they're dealing with. When they right. They're dealing with their bosses. Now, and I'll tell you something. I do believe that to a large degree, inner city black people are targeted. I think there is such a thing as a criminal activity that is commonly referred to as driving while black. I believe that a lot of police officers out there have been instructed that this is a criminal activity and that, black people will be messed with and harassed. I believe it happens. I know it happens because I have been riding in a car with a black man driving, and I have seen it with my own eyes, and it just blew me away. And there is an attitude that for some reason, if you're a young black man, it doesn't take a whole lot. You don't have to do much to all of a sudden fall under suspicion. I don't know why. I would hate to think that it was purposeful and that somebody was really, really out there pulling strings trying to get some kind of racial divide where we have black against white and brown against black and white against brown. Sometimes I think we are being divided for the purpose of conquering because we all forget who the real villain in this is.
No doubt about it. And I'm assuming, first of all, Gary, what was the beginning of the program? There's a few minutes there with no broadcast. Was that it on your end, or is that on the studio's
end? Well, from what I understand, apparently the studio had a wire crossed or a bad wire or something, and apparently we lost the first few minutes going out on Rents. Okay. I'll have to apologize to the Rents audience for that.
No problem, but he must have cut the first commercial break then, because we're well into it.
Yeah. I got a little note from him here saying he's going to skip the bottom of the hour break because apparently he was fast on his feet, though. Apparently he figured out what wire it was bad and got it hooked up real quick. So my compliments to the production staff at Rents. My apologies to the audience for any dead air, but my compliments to the production staff for being fast on their feet and getting that wire fixed.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks. I think Brett's in the studio tonight. Thanks, Brett, for getting that done.
Well, I'll tell you what, we've covered the openers, but I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about this Ebola thing. Now, do you have any strongly held opinions on that?
Well, I don't know how strongly held. I mean, do I think it's am I in the conspiracy realm where I think it's some kind of engineered virus? Well, it is an engineered virus. I shouldn't say that that's a conspiracy. But do I think it's being released as a cover or anything like that? I really don't know, Gary. I think that the conditions in West Africa, this is what I think. 1,000 people have died from it in West Africa. I think if it happened in New York, you wouldn't see that. I think there would be a concerted effort to get the thing contained and to get it cured, and to find a cure for it, and to take the death rate, instead of being 90%, take it down to 10% or something along those lines. But and then some kind of a treatment that is effective found against it. But I think it's because it's mainly in West Africa, or at least I shouldn't say mainly now, because we had a Spanish priest die from it. Today we have the two doctors that are currently under treatment and alive. We have I believe 4 more people that are quarantined in the United States with it now. So it's going to receive some attention, but the only strongly held belief I have is that it shows me if there was a false flag that involved some kind of chemical or biological weapon, biologic in this case, it shows you how incredibly effective the global airline passenger transport system would be in spreading this. And I know it's been the carrier of choice in some movies, but if you think about how incredibly fast something like Ebola, or even something worse that is airborne and even more contagious than Ebola, how quickly it would spread if it hit just one population center. If it hit somewhere like New York, it would be global within 24 hours. If it hit somewhere like Paris or London or Moscow, you name it, any population center, these places have thousands of flights coming in and out of there every single day. It would be global almost instantaneously, probably before the first victim before they had symptoms of the disease that they had, or the infection that they had.
Well, as far as the most promising treatment, it's apparently a monoclonal antibody preparation. This is not really a vaccine. It's not really a serum. This is a cloned antibody. It has a trade name ZMAP, and it's apparently produced by a small pharmaceutical company called MAP Biopharmaceuticals. Now, this is the stuff that's been given to the infected people that we're aware of. Apparently, all the doses of this drug that exist have now been shipped free to the West African nations, but apparently there were only just a handful of doses of this stuff. I believe the article I read said there was about 200 doses. Now, 1,000 people have already died from this in West Africa. I have a funny feeling that, even if there was 500 doses of this antibody preparation, that probably would not come anywhere near meeting the immediate demand. Because this MAP Pharmaceutical is a fairly small outfit, apparently their ability to ramp up and produce it in large quantities is somewhat hampered. Now, whether there will be an emergency declared and their patent will, or copyright or whatever they have on this drug, whether that'll just be ignored and it'll be rushed into production from all the big pharmaceutical, I don't know. So far, we've had a few suspect cases here in the United States, besides the 2 aid workers who were brought into the country knowing that they were infected. There's been a couple of infections that have popped up, one in New York in particular, where everybody said, okay, this is patient 0 in the U.S. Well, turns out that guy had malaria. Apparently, Ebola does mimic other more common non-life-threatening infections, so it's possible to think somebody who has malaria or even a bad flu might be an Ebola candidate. So far, other than the 2 aid workers that were brought in for treatment, no new cases have shown up here in the United States. I don't think there's any confirmed cases in Europe yet, although other than that one Spanish priest. Bottom line, is this a bioweapon that somebody whipped up in a lab? I'm not so sure. Apparently, when they look at the genetic structure of this, or viruses don't have genetics, they just have an RNA strain. But apparently, the markers are very, very similar to earlier outbreaks of Ebola, so this may just be a natural evolution of the Ebola virus. My understanding is it can be transmitted in an aerosol, like in a sneeze, but that it doesn't have the ability to persist for a long period of time once it's dried out. Kind of like a flu or a cold virus. They can last for weeks on smooth surfaces. You can pick up a cold or a flu from somebody who sneezed on a doorknob 2 weeks earlier. Ebola is not quite that easy to transmit. You almost have to be in the direct, you have to catch a face full of the aerosol of somebody sneezing to be infected. So, obviously a lot of the first people that are getting hammered by this thing are medical types who are trying to treat infected people and not taking proper precautions. My understanding is that some of these doctors over in West Africa do not even have gloves and respirators, so they are really ill-equipped to handle these patients. That's why the doctors are getting infected so quickly.
So, but there is theories that both like AIDS and Ebola, that these viruses initially were man-made, and you're thinking probably that's just a conspiracy theory, literally. Well,
the problem is, I've looked at what passes for the proof, and it's not really convincing. It's okay. I've seen, what passes for proof that space-based energy weapons knock down the towers in New York. And I look at it and okay, yeah, all right, well, I'm unconvinced. I can think of known techniques, stuff that I know has existed since the late 1950s, that would do the same thing. Why do I have to invoke space-based energy weapons to get this job done? So, it's like an argument can be made, but as far as, proof positive that, it's definitely, caught him dead to rights, no, there is no smoking gun as far as I can see.
Yeah, all right. Well, it's not my field of expertise. I don't do a lot of study in it, but it seems that if Ebola or AIDS was meant to devastate humanity, I think technology and science has progressed to the point where they could create something that is more effective and more deadly than either one of them.
Well, Ebola, if it really went rampant and maintained its kill rate, I mean, a virus that kills somewhere between 52 and 90% of the people it infects, that's a new world order wet dream there, boy. I mean, if you're trying to depopulate the planet, you just get all giddy, get all excited, and start rubbing your hands together over something like that. But I don't know. Are we into a World War Z scenario where something got loose from a biolab? Maybe. I just ain't seen the proof yet to get me on board with that. But I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
What I am worried about is that if the media starts hyping fear over Ebola, it might be used as a impetus to get people lining up at Walmart to get that shot. I'm hearing the music, Charlie. We got to go on break for a minute so they can sell some product. Right. We'll be back in just a moment, folks. Okay, I think we're back. Are you still there, Charlie?
I'm still here.
Yeah, I thought I might have lost you.
My 14-year-old walked in and asked for permission to stay out later than his curfew, and I had to put him in his place quickly.
Uh-oh.
It's okay. It's okay, though. We're all good. We're all good.
All right. I got one item here on the economy I kind of wanted to talk about. I read an article out of Breitbart, And Breitbart, usually their writers are pretty much on the money. I've not caught them in an out and outright lie yet, so
Right.
got to shrug my shoulders.
I agree. Little neocon-y for me.
Yeah, they do tend to line up with the neocons sometimes. So you got, as always, you got to consider the source. But this article headliner is U.S. wages down 23% since 2008. 23%. I mean, that means average Joe in the United States has lost almost a quarter of his buying power just since 2008.
We can discount Breitbart on this one because I have that story. It's the first story I posted today at Wide Awake News. U.S. jobs paid average 23% less today than they did before the 2008 recession, according to new report released on Monday by United States Conference of Mayors. So, take away the neocon. I'm sure they loved it, and they could put a neocon spin on it, like we need another Bush in the office in 2016. But it's a simple fact. I mean, we're making less money. The middle class is shrinking, 23% less. And ironically, if you probably looked up the profit margins of the too big to fails.
That was going to be my next bit. Even though average Joe working stiff, the guy who actually gets out there and builds things, does things with his hands, and actually contributes work to the society. Those who earn their living by moving money from one pile to another seem to be doing very well.
Yeah. Matter of fact, now you've inspired me. I will use this story, and I'll look and see what the Goldman Sachs, Wells Fargo, and these other too big to fails, what their profits have done since 2008. But I guarantee you.
Well, here's a bit out of this. Here's a bit out of this blurb. U.S. banks posted $40.24 billion in net income during the second quarter, the industry's second highest profit total in at least 23 years, according to data from the research SNL Financial. Let's see, your commercial lending rose at an annualized rate of 12.6%. So, now, of course, when they say commercial lending, that typically means one bank lending money to another bank and that bank turning around and lending it back to, because, a lot of these guys, the way they make their living is just by running the money around in circles. It doesn't really do anything. It never really gets into the economy, never really helps build a road or fix a bridge or get water into Detroit. They just sit there and run the money around in circles between themselves, and that's considered GDP activity.
Yes, sir. That's exactly right. And, it used to be that if you were going to spend money on infrastructure, or if you were going to stimulate the economy, you'd spend money on infrastructure. Well, we don't do that anymore. We stimulate the economy by stimulating the indices on Wall Street, and that is now considered to be recovery. That's considered to be prosperity.
Yeah, that's economic activity, If I take money out of my left pocket and put it in my right money, that's it. I take money from my left pocket, put it in my right pocket. That's economic activity.
Yeah. Hey, Gary, with 6 minutes left, I know it's your hour here, and I'm hoping we can talk, and I'm hoping you've been following a little bit about what's going on the topic that I've been covering incessantly for several months.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you want to talk about Iraq or you want to talk about Ukraine? Because, frankly, they're both going to hell in a handbasket.
Yeah, Ukraine is the one that I think this is the one that Iraq is a bloody mess that we created. It's a bloody mess. It's destabilized, and Iraq has no ability, ISIS has no ability to devastate life as we know it on this planet. I'm sorry. They just don't. But Russia absolutely does. So Ukraine and this brewing World War III, once again, starting in Europe, definitely has my attention.
Well, what's the latest you hear on the aid convoy? Now, I heard that the Kiev regime was going to let them in as long as the Red Cross did the paperwork or something like that. Then I heard that they weren't going to let them in. Now I hear the most recent that I heard is that they actually did allow this aid convoy that's coming from Russia into the eastern portion of Ukraine, trying to bring them some food and some water and some electric generators, basic essentials to get them, back functioning. I understood that the Kiev regime actually did allow Russia to bring this aid in. Is that? Did you hear the same articles?
Well, then, from what I understand right now, which it's what do we got here? It's almost 9 o'clock East on the 12th. That the convoys have not reached the border yet. The last I heard, which was like an hour and a half ago, is they were 200 miles away from the Kiev or from the Ukraine border, and an agreement. Now, depending who you listen to, an agreement has been met that initially Kiev wanted all these trucks, 250 trucks, unloaded and reloaded onto Red Cross trucks so they could see what was on there, and before it went to Donetsk or Donetsk, before which is ridiculous. I mean,
yeah,
the amount of time you're talking days to do this kind of work. So the latest agreement was that Red Cross was on board with the convoy, and Kiev was going to let them in, and Russia had agreed to a route that goes through western Kiev border controlled region and then get into Donetsk to distribute this aid. But that depends who you listen to. If you tune on CNN or Fox tonight, they'll tell you a different. That was from RT and other Russian media. If you listen to Western media, they're saying this convoy's on the way, and Kiev is worried that it's a Trojan horse, and they're going to get in there and spring. All these Russian soldiers are going to spring out, or this equipment is. But my stance is still the same. I'm not an apologist for Russia in this. I understand why they're fighting the West the way they are. I completely understand it and get it. And I'm disgusted that my tax dollar is in Kiev right now and has led to a civil war. It has led to a downing of a civilian airliner that has led to the loss of 2,000 civilians. But I can understand why Russia is doing what it's doing. However, I do believe that there is every motivation for Russia to continue to support the rebels. And if they can't support the rebels, they are going to invade under humanitarian causes. I think these trucks are probably filled with a lot of food and generators and stuff like that. But they're doing this to establish a route to keep supplying these rebels because they're cut off. They're cut off from Donetsk. They're cut off from Donetsk.
Did you hear about the other piece to that story that somebody has come out saying that the Kiev regime is apparently attempting to blow up some chemical plant that they say could contaminate 600 square kilometers of eastern Ukraine and kill a whole lot of people with a quasi chemical weapon of sorts. I don't know how. The problem is that sometimes you have to really look at these sources hard. And I remember it reported over the weekend that kind of a stray shell had come kind of close to this chemical plant, but now they're saying, oh no, the boys in Kiev are trying to blow up this chemical plant purposely to wipe out a large portion of eastern Ukraine. I mean, have you heard that story? Have you given it any credence?
Yeah, no, I've heard it, and I've thought about it a little bit because. The alleged leaked memorandum from RAND said that all types of weaponry should be on the table, conventional and non-conventional. Then you had the Ministry of Defense threatening the pro-Russian separatists that there's a surprise coming. And within 2 days of this surprise and within 2 weeks of this announcement of a surprise, you have the airliner shot down, and you have this attack on this chemical plant, both of which, kind of fit into that surprise category. So they also said in that report, if you believe it or not, and it's irrelevant if we believe it or not. I mean, the things that are in it just happen to be happening right now. But in that, it said it would cut off Donetsk, and it would cut off Lugansk, and it would say anybody that has remained is a terrorist. And that's exactly what they've done. They've cut them off. They've cut them off from the borders of Russia. And they're saying, in a city like Donetsk, where there's 1 million people strong, they're saying that most have fled, and the ones that are there are, basically pro-Russian separatists or pro-Russian separatist supporters. So, mass death is on the horizon in eastern Ukraine, either by Russia stepping back and letting this plan go to fruition, or by Russia intervening and Russia and Ukraine going head to head. And if that happens, Gary, I don't know where it goes from there. I mean, there's a vested EU interest, meaning there's a vested IMF interest, meaning there's a vested U.S. interest in keeping this rebellion put down. So I don't know. A lot of people think, oh, no big deal. This, is just more Russia rolling in. Nothing's going to come of it.
Well,
but
there's a couple other ways to look at it. Now, you could consider that, now that they've run all the Slavs out of eastern Russia, I don't know how many refugees are now, camping across the border in Russia, but I know that, I heard one number was, 10, 15, 20,000, and all of a sudden, it started coming in six figures. So it looks like a lot of people have, basically thrown in the towel and said, hey, this is no way to live, and they beat feet, and they're basically camping across the border in Russia. So I guess, if I was the Kiev regime, now that, nobody's home, everybody's on vacation in Russia, I'll hold my election, and I'll be sure to get elected, won't I?
Yeah, that's a good theory. I like it.
See,
I mean,
I got everybody's stamp of approval. Everybody likes me, even those folks that used to live in Donetsk. They love, whatever's left, they love me.
Yeah. Well, here's the deal. It doesn't matter. It doesn't. I mean, it does not matter what the people of Ukraine want. They've got a Western-backed government. It's like saying Poland could suddenly turn back to Russia. It's not going to happen without a fight. It's just not going to be allowed. The EU is absolutely desperate to get the economic infusion that will come by including Ukraine, the breadbasket of Europe, into their coffers. And, when you have the vice president's son working as an officer for the largest energy company inside of Ukraine, and where you have the Ukrainian military providing cover as they go ahead and set up their operations to extract gas from shale in eastern Ukraine, you can be rest assured this has been thought out, and there is no just giving up and walking away.
And hey, even if it doesn't work out for them, they can always just start a good old-fashioned war and get our mind off of all that their economic situation.
Right on, brother.
That's it for me. I've done my share of barking at the moon for this Tuesday night. Y'all have a good week, and you betcha I'll see you again next week. Good night, all.
Calling out to you. Won't you turn, won't you turn around?